Waived, released, or put on IR. Three of the designations that the Raiders use to get down to their initial 53-man roster. We'll break that down, plus a lot more, on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for August 27th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome here, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you as we close things out as we normally do. Calls, texts, a lot of great feedback on everything we've been talking about so far this week and then some. So calls, texts, a lot of good stuff. We'll close it out in today's show in segment number 3. Segment number 2, we'll focus in on the wide receivers, another subject that we've been talking about quite a bit here on the show. Jacoby Myers, he requested a trade. Amari Cooper, he signed, sealed, and delivered on a one-year deal, even practiced on Tuesday. So we're talking about practice, not a game, practice. But no, he did, in fact, practice. He spoke with the media as well. So all things wide receivers in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, and it really just has to do with the initial 53-man roster. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Football season's right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. So, off top, before we actually get into the transactions that the Raiders made in order to get their roster down to the initial 53-man roster, just like everyone else across the league had to do, they had to have this done by 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. They did that, and the rest of the league did that as well. But off top, I want you to hear from head coach Pete Carroll because he was asked late last week about this process. And through all his years in the league and all the times that he had to break the news to a player that they are not going to be moving forward, has he found an easier way to kind of break that news to these players?
I don't think that there's I haven't found in all of the times we've had to face that, I haven't found really the right way to do it other than just tell them exactly what you feel. And it's not always what they want to hear, but I try to come as clear to them as I can, tell them exactly what took place and why, and give them good reasoning, because I know as soon as they walk out that door, their mind is going a million miles an hour, and they're trying to figure out why, what can I do, what's next, and what's going on. And I feel for every one of them. And so just tell them straight up what the situation was, what the opportunities are, because it ain't ever over. Guys come back to us all the time, and so there is always, to me, there's always a positive look at it. It's not like see you later forever. That's not how we talk. These guys that are in this meeting room right here, they deserve to be part of this club. They have given everything they've got. I love the way that they've fought through maybe their old habits, old ways to join us and be part of the mentality that we're standing for here. And they feel like they're our guys. So as is when we have to do that, I'm going to try to open the avenue so that they have a sense of how they could wind up coming back to us, and it happens all the time, so we'll see.
Pete Carroll, in all his time in the National Football League, it's still never easy to tell these guys that have gone through the summer, blood, sweat, and tears, trying to prove that they deserve a spot on the roster, going from 90 in the Raiders' part, 91 to 53. It is not easy, but you hear what he said. It's never means it's over forever. It's just over for right now. And still, it's a tough pill to swallow for all these players. And you think about all those players that are gone from the Raiders, and then you times that by 32 and realize how many guys are out of a job. Now, a lot of them will revert back to the practice squad, but that's only 16 players per team. Or if you have an international player like the Raiders do, then 17. Either way, still a lot of guys that the dream is over, at least for now. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it, go over the roster, what the Raiders did, waived, released, and put guys on IR. If you're waived, that means that you have less than 4 years of NFL experience. You haven't got that you haven't got that vested vet, so you have to go through waivers if you are in this designation, and any team could put a claim in on you in the 24-hour period, and then they got to put you on the 53-man roster. If you're released, you can sign with any team you want. That means you're a vested veteran. You've got over the 4 years plus of time in the league, and then reserve IR, designated for return. The Raiders have that as well. So quickly, I'll go over who they waived officially on Tuesday. Defensive tackle Zach Carter, running back Chris Collier, defensive end Jafari Harvey, wide receiver Shedrick Action Jackson, linebacker Matt Jones, defensive tackle Trevin Mahai, guard Antonio Mafi, running back Sincere McCormick, wide receiver Tommy Malott, quarterback Cam Miller, defensive end Ovi Ogofu, tight end Carter Runyon, wide receiver Justin Shorter, offensive lineman Laki Tassi, safety Trey Taylor, cornerback Greedy Vance, tackle Dalton Wagner, and safety J.T. Woods. Also, they released the following players. Remember, these guys could sign with any team they want to across the league, and no team could claim them. They have to sign as free agents. Alex Bachman, the wide receiver, Terrell Edmonds, the safety, and tight end Albert O. So those are the guys that were released and then reserve injured, designated for return, Lonnie Johnson Jr. So those are the moves that they made official on Tuesday. Now, I told you that they made a handful of moves on Monday. We'll get to those in a hot minute, but I do want to go over these initially and talk about the guys that stood out. I didn't think there was going to be a bunch of surprises, and there really wasn't, but I will say 2 6-round picks, both getting waived, and I'm sure that both these guys are expected to sign on the Raiders practice squad as long as they're able to clear waivers. Tommy Malott, the wide receiver out of Montana State. Cam Miller, the quarterback out of North Dakota State. I really thought Cam Miller was going to make the 53-man roster because of the injury to Aiden O'Connell. So really, the move that wasn't made was probably the biggest surprise, at least for me, that Aiden O'Connell is initially on the 53-man roster. Now, that could always change, right? They can claim someone off of waivers and decide that they want that roster spot, and that could change. But for now, we know Aiden O'Connell's out 6 to 8 weeks. We know that he has the fractured wrist. He's got to have the surgery. I thought that felt like that was going to be the end of Aiden O'Connell with the Raiders, especially after they made the trade for Kenny Pickett. But in fact, Cam Miller is the one that they decided that they were going to waive him, try to get him on the practice squad and try to develop him there, as opposed to being 3 quarterbacks on the active roster with Cam Miller being included in that. Instead, now they've got Geno Smith, they've got Kenny Pickett, and they've got Aiden O'Connell, even though we know Aiden O'Connell's not going to be doing anything for a little while. So that stood out to me as pretty interesting. But Tommy Malott and Cam Miller both being waived, both 6-round picks. I knew Tommy Malott was really kind of on the bubble, especially after they made the signing of Amari Cooper. Kind of knew that him and it felt like Alex Bachman were both expendable. But in fact, he is the guy that got waived, and he'll probably try to develop him as well on the practice squad. So Tommy Malott, Cam Miller, those guys got waived. Laki Tassi was interesting to me. I know he's not ready to play right now. And I don't think he's going to get picked up off waivers, just because if you do pick him up off waivers, you got to put him on the 53-man roster. And again, he's not ready to play right now. But I do think that the Raiders really like him. He's the international player. He just needs about a year to grow and develop into what he could be. But, I mean, he's 6'6", 373, right? So somebody's going to see that size and take a liking to him. Now, are they going to take enough liking to put him on the 53-man roster? We'll find out sooner rather than later. But he's an interesting one just because of what he potentially could be down the road. Greedy Vance, I was a little surprised that he didn't make the 53-man roster. I was very much on the bubble with him and Darnay Holmes. Didn't know who was going to get the nod. Clearly, Darnay Holmes got the nod, so I was wrong about that. Greedy Vance is another guy I expect to see on the Raiders practice squad as long as he's able to clear waivers. But again, he's got to clear waivers. And then one guy that was released that surprised me, Terrell Edmonds. That was a big surprise. I mean, he's the guy that the Raiders just signed as a safety. Pete Carroll was just asked about him the other day, and he said he really liked what he brought to the table. So I felt like he was a guy that was going to make the 53-man roster, and just kind of shows you how bad my 53-man roster that I put together was based off of who they actually kept and who they didn't. Because Terrell Edmonds, I thought, basically was a shoo-in, especially since they just signed him. But the fact that they released him and now he's available for any team across the league to pick up, he can sign with any team that he wants. That was pretty interesting to me as well. Maybe they put him on the practice squad. I could see that going on, but really surprised that they made him available. So those are the guys that were waived, released, and put on the IR on Tuesday. Going back to Monday, and on Tuesday's show, I mentioned that didn't have enough time to go over the guys that they initially waived or released, so I'll go ahead and do that really quickly. Gottlieb A., the tackle, Michael Barrett, the linebacker, Tank Booker, not to be confused with Thomas Booker IV, who they just traded for, the defensive tackle, he was waived. Andre Carter II, defensive end, he was waived. Safety Hudson Clark, tackle Parker Clements, defensive tackle Keandre Coburn, Amari Gaynor, the linebacker, center Gerard Hufford, cornerback John Humphrey, tight end Kadir Ishmael, wide receiver Ketron Jackson Jr., Ja Joyner, the defensive end, Sam Webb, the cornerback, and then they released these players: Marquez Callaway, the wide receiver, Philip Dorsett II, the wide receiver, Colin Johnson, the wide receiver, and then Jalen Smith, the veteran linebacker. So those guys were all taken care of and informed of the plans of the team on Monday. So right now, again, they're down to an initial 53-man roster. This is not something that is in red ink. This is not something that's set in stone. This is something that you better put in pencil and get your eraser ready, because there's going to be a lot of moving and shaking going on. I do expect the Raiders to comb through that waiver wire and get really, really busy. And speaking of the waiver wire, I did want to pass this note on as well. And this really pertains to the Tennessee Titans because they got the number 1 spot, but you can kind of understand what it means. This comes from Ari Mayrov, good friend from 33rdteam.com. He said, important note on the waiver wire. Teams can claim as many players as they want without worrying about anyone behind them in the order. It's not like fantasy football. If the Titans want to claim 4 players, they're getting all 4. It's a huge roster advantage because they are number 1, as they had the number 1 pick in the draft. So obviously the Raiders aren't in a position like the Titans. They didn't have the number 1 pick, but they had the number 6 pick. So anyone at number 7, number 8, number 9, they can want whatever player the Raiders want. It doesn't matter. The Raiders, if they have the opportunity to claim them, they can claim them. They can claim as many as they want to. They still obviously have to get within the 53-man roster. And again, if you claim someone off of waivers, you have to put them on the 53-man roster. So you can't just claim anyone thinking that you're going to stash them on the practice squad. That's not going to work. You have to put them on the 53-man roster. But right now, the Raiders sit at the number 6 spot. So anybody that they see that's out there and available, they have the Titans, the Browns, the Giants, the Patriots, and Jaguars to hope that they don't have the same interest as the Raiders do. But they have that number 6 spot, and they can claim as many people as they want. So that's the initial 53-man roster. I don't think there was a bunch of huge surprises, especially on the moves that happened on Monday. Wasn't surprised by any of those. And really, even the moves that made on Tuesday to get down to the initial 53 wasn't a bunch of big surprises either. We just talked about a handful of them in segment number 1, and that was really about it. So that's the starting point. That's not going to be the ending point. That is for sure. But there are 2 players on this team that everyone's focused in on and been talking about a lot. Jacobe Myers, as we found out about his trade request on Monday. And then we also found out about Amari Cooper, who the Raiders made official on the 1-year deal on Tuesday. We'll talk about both those guys coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want you to know that this episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner. You can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now's the time. And it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, plenty of shows are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. I'm sure you're asking, what are those features? Well, with season kickoff on September 4th, now's the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football, which offers so many fun ways to compete. Want more ways to play? Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. Want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Prefer the classics? Get your crew together and go head-to-head in a private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league. It's the easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, now, Raider Nation, before we really jump into segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, I got to do this because Ari said, hey, Q, we got to do this. We got to talk about this listener survey. So check it out. We got an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. They put together a survey to learn more about the listeners, all the listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Make your favorite podcast even better. It's your chance to tell us what you like and what you don't and answer questions about our advertising. Go to LockedOnPodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, LockedOnPodcast.com/survey. You can also find a link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. Remember, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'm just kidding. Seriously. No, but seriously, we had to do that. And thanks for helping us out. We really do appreciate you. Now, let's jump into segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to focus in on all things wide receivers. And first thing first, we'll start with Jacobe Myers. There has been no movement. Nothing has changed. People hit me up on Tuesday. Q, is he at practice? Q, is he at practice? Yes. There was some kind of confusion. A lot of people kept hitting me up. It's like, well, he said he's not going to play or he wants his release. No, he just requested a trade. Requesting a trade does not mean you're going to get traded. Requesting a trade does not mean that you're not showing up to practice. Requesting a trade does not mean you're not playing. It just means that you're asking for a trade. And in this scenario, it's because he's trying to get a sense of urgency for his contract extension. And, you know, the funny thing about this, before we get into things, Amari Cooper, I heard a lot of people talking about Jacobe Myers and what he should deserve and what he should get and what he shouldn't get. And I heard, Vinny Bonsignore and Vince Sapienza on the morning tailgate on Raider Nation Radio 920. And I got a lot of respect for those guys, but they were talking about his deal. And this year he's supposed to make about $10.5 million. And they kept saying, well, if he thinks he's going to get anything in the $20 million range or anything that has a 2 in front of it, he's wrong. And I kept thinking, like, why? Why is he wrong? Why can't he get $20 million a year? Why is that so unreasonable, right? When a guy like Michael Pittman is in Indianapolis making $23 a year, like why can't he get $23 a year? Or why can't he get $20 million a year? Now, again, I'm not getting into man's pockets. I'm not, I don't even know what he's asking for. I don't know what his people are in representation are asking for. I get that, but all I know is that salaries continue to go up every year. The salary cap goes up every year. And traditionally, when guys go and get contract extensions, a lot of them will, get more money than the last guy. Now, there's tiers to this. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. He's not in the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, even Terry McLaurin tier, right? He's not in that tier where he's that wide receiver. But he's a really damn good wide receiver. And he's done nothing but everything he's asked to do since he's been a member of the Raiders. So it's so funny when I hear guys say, oh, there's no way he's going to get a contract with a 2 in front of it, like $20 million a year or $21 million a year. And I keep thinking, why not? Why not? And if he wants $20 million, I hope he's asking for 25 because you know how negotiations go, right? You aim high and you expect a little bit of a haircut. So I don't know what he's expecting. I don't know what his representation is trying to get. But it's just funny to me when all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, he can't get that. He don't deserve that. When all we see is teams around the league dish out a ton of money for guys that, are their guys that do things the right way, guys that go out there and produce. And yep, check box, and check box. That's all Jacobe Myers has done. Real quick, here's Adam Schefter. He was on the Pat McAfee show on ESPN on Tuesday. This is what he said, his understanding of the Jacobe Myers situation.
My understanding is the Raiders had one team reach out to them. They wanted the Raiders to pay some of the $11 million salary, and the Raiders are not willing to do that, and they're not looking to deal him. So Jacobe Myers is going to be there, barring something unforeseen happening. I mean, they could decide a few games in, he's not happy, he's not behaving well, but they don't want to trade him, and they view him as a productive player. He's been a really good player, and he's entering the last year of his deal, so they want to hold on to him in Vegas. They're not looking to deal him, and right now, they have no intention of trading him.
There's Shefty right there talking about one team reached out, but, they're trying to get the Raiders to pay some salary. Clearly, they're not going to do that, and clearly they don't have any intentions of trading Jacoby as it is right now. And now, again, as I mentioned on Tuesday's show, if the season all of a sudden starts out terrible and they start to go downhill, things could always happen before the trade deadline, or if John Spytek and Pete Carroll just aren't on the same page. But to me, it feels like a situation that's going to get done. And I would even say this, and I talked about it on the radio, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Tuesday. I could even see a scenario where, the Raiders did for Max Crosby a year ago. Remember when he had his deal? Christian Wilkins came in, got the big free agent money, and then they gave Max Crosby a raise. They put a little sugar on top is what I called it, and that got them some time, got him into the offseason, and then they were able to take care of his contract this offseason. I could see them doing something like that. We saw Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati just do something like that. So I could see that as well if they want to try to buy some more time and maybe, see what Jacoby could bring to the table, how he fits in with this offense and how well he plays. I could see them doing that. But $10.5 million for what Jacobe Myers did and has done since he's been a member of the team and has not complained, no moaning and crying and going to the media and all that other stuff, throwing a fit like other wide receivers that we've seen, right? No holding in, no holding out, right? No, nothing that's just been disruptive. He hasn't been doing that. All he's been doing is what he's supposed to. I definitely could see them, taking care of him this year, just like I said, giving a little bit of raise, putting some money on top of it, and then addressing it next offseason. Now, I did want to get to Amari Cooper. Both him and Kenny Pickett, they both were made official by the Raiders on Tuesday. They sent out the notifications that Amari Cooper signed a one-year deal. Kenny Pickett, they made the trade official for the 5th-round pick going back to the Cleveland Browns. But I want to focus in on Amari Cooper as he returns. Drafted in the 1st round back in 2015, 10 years later, he makes his return to the Silver and Black. And he actually met with the media after practice, and he was kind of surprised. Didn't know if he was going to practice on Tuesday, but Pete Carroll wasted no time, got him out there on the practice field. He's wearing number 19. That was the number that he was rocking when he first arrived with the Raiders in 2015 before he switched to 89. That was his rookie number originally, was number 19. Pete Carroll found a way to get that back. Tommy Mellott was wearing that during training camp, but since he was, waived, that number 19 became available. So I was interested to hear what Amari Cooper had to say, and his press conference was like 10, 12 minutes, whatever the case may be, because I just want to know where his thought process is as he returns to the Raiders. And I saw him sit down with Levi Edwards from Raiders.com, and he had mentioned that he had unfinished business. He wanted to go finish what he started with the Raiders. So that intrigued me. And, well, that was one of the first things that he was asked about in his press conference. Here's Amari Cooper on if he's always had thoughts about returning to the Silver and Black.
Yeah, honestly, I always kind of had that in the back of my mind because, when I was drafted here, I felt like the expectations were high. I felt like I did okay, but I always knew, why I was drafted. You draft a guy at top 5, you expect them to come and, really help change the organization. And, I felt like, at times, I showed flashes of doing that, but it wasn't to my expectations. So, like I said, this time around, I feel like I have unfinished business. I definitely see the opportunity, working with Geno to be able to do some great things. So I'm excited about it.
So we know the guy's mature, and I'm really interested and intrigued, and I try not to take too much from press conferences because a lot of guys go out and win the press conference. Hell, Jimmy G won the press conference when he signed as a free agent with the Raiders, right? And we all know what happened then. I try not to take too much from press conferences, but I also try to really listen and pay attention to what guys had to say. And, he's not wrong. When they drafted him as high as they did, the expectations were basically he was going to be the next Tim Brown. Tim Brown mentioned the Raiders got their next Tim Brown, and we all know it never worked out like that. He flashed. He had moments where he was really, really good. He had some highs. He also had some lows. So I was intrigued when he said that, he knew what the expectations were when they drafted him, and he knows that he didn't live up to that. So that, to me, was pretty interesting. Then he was asked about what is he going to bring to that wide receiver room outside of catching passes, outside of being, a wide receiver, a vet wide receiver. What else does he feel like he can bring to a relatively young room?
Yeah, just leadership. I've always been a type of guy to lead by example. I do want to work on leading vocally as well because, I believe when you marry the two together, that's the best form of leadership. So, like I said, years go by fast. I'm in year 11 now. You got a couple rookies in the room, so I'll be glad to kind of, show them, a couple of the tricks of the trade because, there are nuances to the game on this level. So I'm excited about that.
Leadership, and Amari Cooper, right? Those are two words that a word that I never really would associate with Amari Cooper in the past. Again, I'm a guy that was a big fan of Coops coming out of Alabama. I was so excited when the Raiders drafted him number 4 overall, just because I saw what he was able to do as a member of the Crimson Tide. And to me, he just never seemed like, one, he was a leader, like you just mentioned. 2, never seemed like he was a guy that cared about being great. He was just satisfied with being good. That bothered me because I just knew how much talent he had. And, we'll see. Again, it's easy to win the press conference, but talking about being a leader and saying that he's working on being vocal because he's not a loud guy. He's not a guy that, is going to be very, very vocal. And obviously with the young room, he's going to have to be. But to say that he doesn't mind, kind of showing them the ropes, the tricks to the trade, and also leading by example, again, I'm okay with that. And we know, again, it's a veteran wide receiver. He's on a cheap deal, maximum $6 million. So it's not like you should expect the world from Amari Cooper. But again, right now, saying all the right things. So speaking of growing, and everyone's expected to grow, right? He came into the league in 2015. It's now 2025. How much has he grown since his first time with the Silver and Black?
A lot. This NFL thing has definitely been a journey. It has its ups and downs for sure, but you just got to keep fighting, keep going, keep pushing. When I was here at the Raiders the first time, it was like my first year we didn't perform very well, but then the next year it seemed like we were winning every game, until Derek Carr got hurt at the end of the season. So it was ups and downs, but I learned how to handle it better, I would say.
Again, there's just Amari Cooper on the growth that he's had since he was a rookie with the Raiders and what he brings back to the Raiders in 2025. And I'm a big body language guy. Just watching the video, I wasn't able to be at the practice facility and be in the room with Amari Cooper because I was on the radio at that time. My show was going on. So it actually happened like right at the end. It was about 4:45 Pacific time. My show gets wrapped up at 5, so I couldn't be in 2 places at once. I'm still working on that. I'm still working on trying to clone myself and be in 2 spots at once. If I can figure it out, look out. Everyone's in trouble. But, just watching the video of Coop, it seemed like the body language was pretty good. Seemed like he, was a little jet lagged from getting on the plane from Dallas and heading to Vegas. But, he'll be fine. And to see him out there, practicing and just knowing that, he's part of the team again, right? I'm kind of excited to see what it's going to look like. Again, he's not a guy that could replace Jacoby Myers, but he's a guy that can complement him. And the kind of way I was going to word it if I had been there is, can he be the Michael Crabtree that, to Jack Besh, or can he be Michael Crabtree to Dante Thornton Jr., right? I mean, because Amari Cooper, when he got into the league, who did he have? He had Crabtree to be the veteran wide receiver to show him the ropes and even came up with some big clutch catches. Like Crabtree was what we call him, Michael Crabtree. Remember how important he was? He was actually the more clutch guy for the Raiders because Coop would have those concentration drops. He put the ball on the ground. So again, I'm just like thinking, going through my mind, wondering if he could play a role like that. But just hearing, him talk about leadership, growth, and everything, that to me, he has a chance to play that role. It's up to him if he can go out there and do that. A couple more sound bites real quick from Amari Cooper and his press conference that he had on Tuesday. And this one's about actually playing on the grass and playing in this Raiders offense. How does he feel about working with quarterback Geno Smith?
I'm very excited. It's something about, guys from South Florida, especially him being the quarterback. I think sometimes you just have a great rapport with guys in terms of like timing. Sometimes you could walk into a situation and the timing is automatically there. Today was my first day of practice. Didn't really know if I would practice today, honestly, coming off of a flight. But I'm excited about that, and I think the connection will be there automatically for sure.
South Florida guys, look, respect from a South Florida guy to another South Florida guy. So Coop likes him. We'll see what it looks like. I'll tell you, look, Geno Smith is a very accurate quarterback. Look, he was with Josh Allen last year. So Amari Cooper's had some good quarterbacks throwing him the rock, right? So it's not like he's been in a void of talent. Look, Carr was very good for Cooper. Dak Prescott was very good for Cooper. Deshaun Watson, did he play? I don't know what happened in Cleveland. Anyway, but I know he put up some good numbers in Cleveland. I don't know what quarterbacks threw him the rock. And then even last year, he had the league MVP in Josh Allen. So it's not like he's ever been in a place where the quarterbacks just stunk. So Geno Smith is going to be another quarterback, quality guy that can get him the rock, right? A guy that's got a lot of accuracy that can get him the ball. So I think that he'll definitely have no problem playing with him. And he's also not a guy that sits there and complains. That's the thing about Coop. He's not going to throw a fit. He's not going to act like a diva. He may look disinterested at times. He does that really well, but he's not a guy that's going to throw a fit and act all upset because he's not getting enough targets. Matter of fact, a lot of times he doesn't even want to get a bunch of targets. But the final soundbite that I want you to hear from Amari Cooper, what he had to say at his press conference on Tuesday, was just what he thinks just initially of this Chip Kelly offense.
I feel good. He's a very dynamic play caller, always has been. It's just my first day here, in the install meeting in terms of the plays that were shown on the board. I already liked what I was seeing, so I'm excited.
Short and sweet right there from Amari Cooper, but what he saw on the board when they were going through installs, again, his first day in the building there with the Raiders, he likes it. He knows that Chip Kelly is an innovative offensive play caller. So, we'll see how it all plays out. Again, I don't expect big numbers from Coop. Last year total, he had about 44 catches and just over 500-something yards. He might get around there. Right, he might get close to 50 catches, depending, right? Big Mike's got to get some, right? Brock Bowers is going to get his. Jacobe Myers is going to get his. I think Trey Tucker's in line for a good year. And really, probably later on in the year, Jack Besh and Dante Thornton will probably start to come on, and maybe that's when Coop starts to tail off a little bit. Probably early on in the season is when they'll lean on Coop a little bit more. But as Besh and Thornton get real comfortable in playing in the NFL, I think you'll see them get a lot more burn. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update on the wide receivers, where everyone stood at this stage of the game. Amari Cooper and Kenny Pickett both practiced on Tuesday with the Raiders, and Jacobe Myers did as well. He did not ask for a release. He asked for a trade. But what's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close us out. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NFL season's almost here. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. All right, pay attention to this. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. What? That's right. So you can use FanDuel for so many different things. You can make a same-game parlay, right? You could pick a favorite. You could pick a future. You can do whatever you want. You want to set up some good fantasy lineups, you can do that. Everything that's going to keep you locked in on Sundays, you can do. And it's other sports as well, but we're focusing on football right now because football season's right around the corner. So I got to ask you, are you ready to play? Good. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with a call from Sacktown Mark. He's calling to talk about the Jacobe Myers situation. Here he is, Sacktown Mark.
Hey, Q. It's been a minute, but this is Sacktown Mark. I just wanted to call in on and talk about the Jacobe Myers situation. I just wanted to kind of echo, I think his name is Big E, the caller, Big E, his sentiments a little bit. I think that this trade request is really just Jacobe Myers kind of putting his cards on the table and telling the Raiders, like, either we get a deal done or I want out. And that's kind of what you have to do in negotiations sometimes. You know, he's trying to be the good soldier. He's trying to be the nice guy, you know, be a team first type of player. But at a certain point, you have to kind of put your cards on the table and go all in and just say, either y'all are going to resign me and we're going to work this out, or I need to be out of here. Like, I'm not playing for this $10 million. I deserve better than that. We all know that. And I need more in order to play for y'all. And I respect Jacobe Myers a lot and his approach up to this point. And even now, I think has every right to do what he's doing. I hold no, animosity towards him for requesting a trade, because I think it's just part of the negotiation timeline, as we've seen with other players around the NFL. But what I do also want to say is I think the Raiders should re-sign him, obviously. But if they have to overpay, because I don't know what the relationship between the Raiders and Jacobe Myers is right now. Maybe it's a little strained. I don't know. But if they have to overpay to keep him, I think it's completely worth it for this simple reason. Because of the person Jacobe Myers is. He is a leader in the locker room. He's a leader in that wide receiver group. As you said, Q, he's taken the time to mentor teammates and take the younger guys under his wing. And he's just always been one of the most professionals that I've seen put on a Raiders uniform in probably this decade at the very least, the 2020s. So also being a free agent acquisition and coming in and making an impact, that doesn't happen a lot with the Raiders. So I think we should keep him at all costs, really. I think he's earned it, not just from the production on the field, but also just because of the type of player he is. You want guys like that in your organization, period. That's how you build a foundation. And if the Raiders are trying to build a foundation and also win now, you have to keep them. So I know that was long-winded, Q. Apologies for that. But thank you for all that you do. Thank you, Ari, for all that you do. And go Raiders.
Marky Mark, thanks so much for the call. Represent that 916. Appreciate you. And, yeah, man, that's the deal. It's exactly how negotiations work in the NFL, right? The trade request is always the next step, right? Then it's the scrubbing of social media. That's the step after that. And he hasn't got there yet. I checked. So I agree with your thoughts on Jacoby. He's been everything and then some that they've asked him to be. Talked about that in segment number 2. I think a deal within reason should be doable. Again, not Jamar Chase, not Justin Jefferson, not 35 plus million a year or even 30 million a year, but anything right around 20 plus, 21, 22, 23, I can see it. Right. Again, it just kind of blew my mind when I heard Vinny and Vince on the morning tailgate talking about, oh, he ain't getting that. If it starts with a 2, he ain't getting that. And you know what? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe the Raiders don't give him a deal that's in the 20s. I don't know. Right. I don't know where they're at. I don't know how far apart they are, but I just don't see how they could dismiss a guy so quickly that all he did was catch every pass that was thrown to him, no matter who was throwing him the rock. and did everything, all the dirty work that he was asked to do, no matter what the overall record was, right? Blocking, right? He's doing everything. He's helping Brock Bowers eat. He's helping Brock Bowers get to, big numbers his rookie year and break all kind of records. And so it's just, it was pretty wild to me. I'm like, man, and the salary cap keeps going up. Salaries for guys keep going up, but yet it's like, oh, no, he ain't going to get that, though. Like, why not? Why not, right? I wish someone would tell me what I can't get, right? You ain't going to get that, Q. Well, okay. We'll see. You might be right, but I sure am going to try. I sure do believe I deserve it. That's the only way that you can act, and that's the only way that he should act because, again, he's done everything, and he's done it all the right way. It's not been a distraction at all. Up next, got a text from Jason in 304. Good day, Q. Raider Jason from the 304. I thought I'd chime in until the cuts happen. One, the Kenny Pickett trade and Amari Cooper are of no immediate impact, strictly depth, and that was something required, depth. Two, they have to give Jacoby a new deal. This offense needs to score 24 points a game, and without him, that's not going to happen. Three, I'm surprised they waived Miller and Malott. I'm curious if they'll survive the waiver wire. Congratulations on the work anniversary. I know it's belated, and thanks for all that you do covering in the offseason. As always, love the show. Just win, baby. Go Raiders. That's Raider Jason from the 304. Thanks so much for the shout-out on the work anniversary. Yeah, 7 years at Locked On went by fast, man. I still remember when I got that call, and I didn't even know what I was going to do. Like, hey, man, you want to do this podcast? I'm like, oh, well, I guess, right? It's funny, man. Bill Williamson was doing it, and I just remember he was doing it before me, and then it kind of went dark. He stopped doing it, and I was like, man, those are some tough shoes to fill, right? Just because, I just knew Bill Williamson growing up. I just knew he was a great writer, and I was like, man, I don't know if I could be able to hold it down. Well, 7 years later, I guess I'm doing all right. So there you go. But, yeah, thanks for that. Definitely appreciate you. I agree with the Jacoby deal. Again, I'm a Jacoby guy. He's a great dude. Family is great, right? Everyone is just A1 from day one, and I like to see people like that succeed. And I like to see people like that be rewarded for what they're doing, right, and what they're going to do. Jacoby's trending in the right direction. He's trending up as far as I'm concerned, right? When other guys could be trending down, Jacoby's just getting better and better. And I think he's going to do really well in this Chip Kelly-led offense. But you're right, 24 points they need to get. Tommy Malott, Cam Miller, both being waived. I think that they have not done enough. I don't even know if that's a real sentence, but I don't think they've done enough to actually have a team claim them and then have to put them on the 53-man roster. But you never know. There could be a team that was looking at them when the Raiders decided to make that move. So we'll find out sooner rather than later. They got 24 hours before they can clear waivers. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Proto, a.k.a. YTD. He's calling to talk business. He's bringing up Kenny Pickett, Amari Cooper, and even Aiden O'Connell. Here's Proto.
Q, what up? Yo, Raider Nation. Business is business. And right now, the Raider business, I think it's looking good in my eyes. Of course, this is Proto, also known as YTD. And the pickup of Kenny Pickett, great pickup. This is one of those pickups like no one thought could happen. Like, it's one of those no one was thinking about it and then it happened. And you're just like, oh, actually, yeah, no, that works. We need a backup quarterback. Aiden O'Connell wasn't a good backup for Chip Kelly anyways, and Kenny Pickett might just fulfill both of those roles. So yeah, actually, honestly, good pickups. Amari Cooper, another one of those, I don't really care if he plays well, good. If not, whatever. But if Amari Cooper ends up playing another 4 years for the Raiders, hey, he might actually go down as one of our best receivers along Tim Brown. Assuming he really wants to play this time and not just do whatever he was doing last time. So honestly, yeah, I think Aiden O'Connell is done, but as we said, business is business. Like, if you can't run the offense, you can't run the offense. And even with backups, it was pretty clear Aiden O'Connell could not run that offense. So I said, let the young man go. There's plenty of teams that will take him. Honestly, I'm pretty sure Josh McDaniels will probably take him because he drafted him. So again, good call by the Raiders on all fronts. As always, thank you, Q, for everything you do. Go Raiders.
Proto, thanks for the call. Appreciate you. And yeah, I have no problem with the Kenny Pickett move, right? Especially that there are folks around the Raiders and in their building that are very familiar with him, right? Brandon Hunt was there in Pittsburgh when they selected him, was in Philadelphia when they traded for him. Now he's with the Raiders when they traded for him. So there's some familiarity there. So I'm okay with that. Pickett's on a 1-year deal. We'll see if he fits with the Raiders or not. Clearly, they still have plans for Aiden O'Connell because they did not put him on IR, at least not yet. They did not move on from him and give him an injury settlement, at least not yet, right? So right now, it looks like that they still want to see what they have in Aiden O'Connell. I'm okay with that because, as I've said many times, it feels like every time he's getting an opportunity to show what he can do, something happens, right? They either pick a different quarterback like Gardner Minshew to be the starter. They get some offense that's terrible. He's had 5 different OCs since he's been in the league. He's only going into year 3, right? He's gotten injured when he finally got a chance to play last year. Now he's injured again. I mean, some things, injuries happen. And if you end up becoming an injury-prone guy, well, as Lincoln Kennedy says all the time, you can't make the club in the tub. So he's got to be able to stay healthy as well. That's on him, but so far, so good for him. He's on the 53-man roster, no IR designation or nothing like that. Thanks so much for the call, Proto. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Nikolai in Vegas. He says, Q, it's Nikolai in Vegas. Quick note on where I think John Spytek's mindset is. He hates giving up draft capital. I remember him in an interview sounding kind of peeved that he gave up a 3rd-round pick for Geno Smith last year, even though I think most of Raider Nation sees that as a fantastic move. What did he do? Went and got that pick back in the draft. He let go Spillane, Merrick, and Haas because he wants those compensatory picks in 2026. And I'm guessing he drafted Jack Besh thinking he'd do the same with Jacoby Myers after this season. If I had to guess, it's the length of the deal they're struggling to agree on. And I'll bet he thinks he can get a 5th for Aiden O'Connell later in the season, making up for the Pickett trade. By the way, I was listening to Pete Carroll's presser on Sunday. I heard some different voices in the call. I thought, yeah, it's Sunday. Q should be taking the day off after a long Saturday. Then I hear your voice on the call. That's some incredible dedication to your craft. No wonder you're so good at it. Hope you're getting some much-deserved rest every now and then, though. Thanks for everything. Just win, baby. That's Nikolai in Vegas. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you, my man. And, yeah, man, you can't miss those pressers, right? I mean, and the good thing it was by way of Zoom. I was exhausted. It was a late night but off of Saturday at the post-game show. Got home super late, but it was by way of Zoom, so it was cool. I didn't have to leave the house. And it's important to be there, man. To have the opportunity to get in front of the head coach and talk to him and get him to know who you are, get familiar, that's priceless. Those kind of things, getting in front of players, talking with players, letting them see your face and get familiar with you, priceless. And if you have the opportunity to do it and you're in this business, you have to do it. If you don't do it, you're doing yourself a disservice. So I will never not do that. So I do appreciate that you recognize it, though, because, yeah, I'm definitely going to make sure I'm on all those. This kind of job is not an 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. This is a lifestyle, right? Wake up. This is what we do. Go to bed. This is what we do. So that's that. As far as his draft picks, talking about John Spytek, the GM, and also compensatory picks, you're spot on. It was funny. I know what interview you're talking about with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was asking for a couple other trades he wanted Spytek to go make, and Spytek's like, hey, man, I like my draft picks. Like, these are valuable. He gave up that 3rd-round pick for Geno, but there was a couple other moves that Pete Carroll wanted to make. He was like, no, man, I'm not giving up these draft picks. And then he turned around and made 8 picks into 11 during the draft. He is going to get compensatory picks from the free agents that they lost. So, yeah, that's what he wants to do. He wants to build through the draft, right? That's something that they did in Tampa Bay. He learned from the Jason Light tree. They want to build. They turned that roster after Tom Brady and company left after they won the Super Bowl. They turned that roster into one of the youngest rosters in the league. And, oh, by the way, one of the youngest rosters that were out there competing as well. So it's not like they just have young dudes out there. They have young dudes out there that are playing at a high level. That's what I'm expecting this Raiders roster to do. With that being said, I still think they need to sign Jacobe Myers because Pete Carroll has an idea that he wants to win, and he wants to win right now. To do that, Jacobe Myers is necessary. Thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. We'll close out with a call from Jordy Raider, calling from Bronco Country in Denver. He's calling to talk about the show, talk about Jacobe Myers and drama, and how Jacoby is anything but drama. Here's Jordy Raider in Bronco Country.
Hey, what up, Q? Jordy Raider out here in Broncos Country out in Denver. I just want to say, man, I appreciate everything you do for the nation. Love your podcast. Love this time of year. Specifically, one thing you said when you were talking about Jacoby Myers yesterday, not blowing it out of the water, him asking for a trade, kind of just kept it cool and said it's just part of it. No drama. And I feel like being a Raiders fan, we know too well about all the drama over the last 20 years of head coaches and players, from Antonio Brown to Derek Carr to Devontae. It's so much. So to hear somebody being like, man, it's just part of the business. I hope we keep Jacoby. I love him. He's a class act. I think he's good for the wide receiver room. You mentioned it. He's been building people up and kind of giving his expertise to the young guys. They're learning from him. I think he's a good teammate, good locker room presence. So anyway, man, yeah, I just appreciate you kind of keeping a calm head about the situation. Staying on your podcast. We'll keep listening to you, bro. And Raiders are out here. I can't remember the date. Some Thursday in November. I got my tickets. We're going to that Thursday night game. Hopefully we kick that Bronco ass. But I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss. Maybe I am. We'll see if you put it on. Anyway, appreciate you, Q. Have a good day, man.
Raiders.
Jordy, thanks so much. Keep your head up out there in Denver, my man. Having to deal with all those Bronco fans, I get it. November 6th, that's the Raiders in Denver game. That's Thursday Night Football. Well, that's a short week, matter of fact. That's a Thursday night, so boom, quick turnaround, and they've got to go to Denver. So that'll be a fun game, and I'm sure you'll have a good time there. And when it comes to Jacoby, he's definitely not a typical wide receiver. Not that diva as they're classified. Not that guy who's a headache. He's just been a class act since he's been with the team, and that's it. Bottom line, class act, done everything he's asked to do since he's been with the team. Now it's time for the team to reward him. So thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. That's all I got time for on today's show. Went a little long as always. Sorry, Ari, but you had me do the listener survey. That's really on you. You told me to do extra things, so this is what happens. So I'm kidding. Anyway, today the Raiders will be practicing again. 1:45 is when they're going to be practicing. That's open to the media. And then general manager John Spytek will be speaking around 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. I'm still deciding if I'm going to do my show from the facility or if I'm just going to do it from the house, and then we'll go to John Spytek live. I don't know. We're going to figure things out, but somehow, some way, we're going to hear from the Raiders GM today, and he'll get some of those questions answered. And I know he'll be asked plenty about Jacobe Myers. He's not going to give us any answers, but he'll definitely be asked questions about him. So thanks so much, Raider Nation, as always. Until tomorrow, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family, and just like always, just win, baby.